There are 6.9 million feral hogs in the United States right now. Texas alone holds 2.6 million of them. They are spread across 253 of the state's 254 counties. The damage they cause costs Texas over $500 million every single year. Nationally, that number is close to $3 billion annually. I want to explain exactly how this happened, why every major effort to stop it has failed, and what field researchers are now finding that changes the entire picture. Let me start with how these animals got here, because this is not a natural situation. It was created by human decisions made centuries ago. Spanish explorers moving up the Gulf Coast in the 1500s released domesticated pigs into the American wilderness on purpose. The logic was simple: leave food behind, return later, find it waiting. What actually happened was the opposite. The pigs did not wait. They moved inland. They spread without any real resistance. There were no large predators capable of challenging them at scale. No disease had evolved to slow them down. No natural limit of any kind. By the time anyone measured the spread, it had already been building for generations. Then, in the early 1900s, a second problem was added on top of the first. Wealthy European hunters began bringing Eurasian wild boar into the United States for sport hunting. These were not soft farm animals. They were built across centuries of survival in some of Europe's most difficult terrain. Longer legs, dense muscle, tusks designed not for show, but for fighting and killing. When these animals broke out of their enclosures, which they always did, they met the feral domestic pigs already living in the American wild. They bred together. What came out of that crossing was worse than either parent. The domestic pig's ability to reproduce fast, combined with the Eurasian boar's aggression, territorial memory, and survival intelligence. That hybrid is what we are dealing with now. It was assembled by accident. It was released into an environment with no opposition. And it has had centuries to establish itself. The reproduction numbers are where I think most people lose the sense of how serious this is. A single female feral hog produces 2 litters per year, up to 12 piglets per litter. Left alone, a feral hog population can double in under 5 months. Not years. 5 months. That is the biological engine driving everything else. Now here is what these animals can physically do. They run at 30 miles per hour. They clear 40-inch fences without slowing down. Their tusks grow past 6 inches. Their skin is over an inch thick. Beneath that skin is a plate of tough cartilage tissue. Rounds that would drop a deer redirect off a mature boar without reaching the vital organs. That is confirmed by field data. This is not exaggeration. The damage record backs it up. Feral hogs have overrun military installations. They have forced pilots to abort runway departures. They have torn through suburban neighborhoods and destroyed underground infrastructure. In 2019, a woman in Harris County, Texas, was killed by feral hogs outside her own home. In Williamson County, a farmer walked out at sunrise and found 24 acres of standing corn completely destroyed overnight. $40,000 gone before the day started. Now I want to explain why the official response failed. Because this is important, And the failure was not minor. For decades, the approach looked like this: trap them, shoot them from helicopters, push them off one property onto the next. Repeat. None of it worked at scale. And the more I looked into why, the clearer the problem became. Feral hogs are actively suspicious of anything new in their environment. Experienced trappers have documented watching a full group of 15 to 20 hogs circle a freshly set cage for 20 minutes and then walk away from the bait without touching it. These animals carry social memory. They share threat information within their group. If you catch part of a group and let the rest escape, that surviving group will not approach a similar trap again. Not next week. Not ever. You get one chance, and most programs were burning it by being too fast. Aerial hunting looked like it might be different. A single flight team can sweep 400,000 acres in days. More animals removed in one afternoon than a ground crew manages in a month. The early numbers looked good, but cleared land refilled within a season. 2 herds moved in for every one removed. The math never shifted in the right direction. What I find most striking is what the research showed next. Aggressive trapping and sustained aerial pressure were not just failing. In many cases, they were making the problem worse. Animals that survived a removal operation scattered across wider territory. They pushed into counties that had been stable. They seeded new populations in untouched ground. Every helicopter operation that cleared one property was effectively planting 3 others. The USDA spent over $100 million on feral hog control nationwide across the last decade. The population kept growing. A line that moves through wildlife management circles in the South describes it plainly. There are 2 kinds of counties in Texas: those with a hog problem and those that are about to have one. That was the state of things when field researchers working the Texas Hill Country began finding something in the data that none of the existing programs had been designed to explain. Around 2014, researchers started finding feral hog nest beds that had been excavated and emptied. These are the shallow ground shelters where mother hogs keep newborn piglets. They were being found, cleaned out, and disturbed. No trap had been tripped. No hunters had been in the area. No equipment marks. No human boot prints. Just disturbed earth and empty nests. And it was happening repeatedly across multiple counties in zones where no active removal operation had been deployed. When field biologists studied the tracks around these empty nests, they worked through the full list of large predators with any established presence in the region: bears, mountain lions, everything. Each one was ruled out by paw geometry, by print depth, by spacing. What remained did not fit the accepted model at all. The tracks were coyote tracks. To understand why this was such a problem for the existing science, you have to understand the accepted model at the time. A coyote weighs around 30 pounds. A mature female feral hog weighs around 200 pounds. A mother hog, defending piglets, will charge without hesitation and can kill a coyote in seconds. Field manuals classified coyotes as scavengers around hogs. Opportunists that cleaned up after real predators had moved on. That classification had held for decades. The data from the trail cameras was showing something completely different. Infrared trail camera footage from Blanco County, Texas, captured at 2 in the morning, showed coyotes moving through brush, not scattered, not foraging randomly, but moving in coordinated formation. The lead animal dropped low, ears just clearing the grass line, approaching a nest from downwind, so the mother could not catch the scent. 2 more coyotes held flanking positions on either side, waiting. When the mother left the nest to forage, the window opened. Minutes, sometimes less. 1 coyote held the perimeter, body angled toward the mother's exit path. A second tested the scent of the piglets. Then, in a single coordinated burst, the flanking animals closed from both sides. 1 precise bite to the back of the neck. The piglet went still, back inside the tree line before the mother completed her turn. 5 seconds, start to finish. Wildlife biologists who reviewed that footage watched the same 30-second sequence loop on a screen and said nothing. Not because they were confused, because they understood it completely. And it contradicted a significant portion of what the accepted model said coyotes were capable of. Lab results confirmed what the cameras were showing. Researchers captured 18 coyotes operating in known hog territory and performed full necropsies. Nearly a third of those 18 animals carried undigested feral hog piglet tissue in their stomachs. Fresh, not scavenged, killed within the previous 12 hours. In Georgia, Wildlife Services found piglet DNA in over 30% of coyote scat samples collected statewide. This was not one county. This was a pattern running across multiple states simultaneously, entirely outside the awareness of every program designed to address the problem it was quietly working against. The technique has a name in the research literature now: high-risk micro-predation. The way it works does not read like standard animal behavior. It reads like a coordinated operation with assigned roles. Coyotes never engage adult hogs directly. They understand that math. A mature hog outweighs them 6 to 1 and can kill in seconds. Instead, they engineer distraction. A lead animal sprints past the edge of a nest fast enough that the mother cannot catch it, but close enough to scatter the piglets. The mother becomes 200 pounds of defensive reaction trying to simultaneously track movement, identify the primary threat, and commit to a direction. She is responding to the wrong target. While she is turning, the flanking animals hit from both sides. 1 bite. The piglet goes still. They are back in cover before she completes her rotation. Before 2010, this behavior does not appear in the documented record at meaningful scale. Trail cameras across Texas and Georgia are now capturing it in groups of 3 and 4 animals, each with a defined role: distraction, blocker, executioner. That level of organized role assignment is what researchers associate with wolves, not coyotes. The timing adaptation adds another layer. Most coyotes hunt throughout the full span of night, but specific groups operating in high hog density territory have shifted their primary hunting window to early dawn. That is the exact period when mother hogs are most physically drained after a full night of foraging. Reaction time is at its lowest. Nest defense is at its weakest. The coyotes found that biological window and organized their timing around it. Trail cameras show The strikes clustering in the hour before and after sunrise, with a consistency that rules out coincidence. What I think is most important to understand here is what this represents about how the behavior spreads. This is not instinct. Instinct does not produce assigned flanking roles or timing optimized around a prey, species fatigue cycle. This is learned behavior moving through coyote family groups, not through genetics, through observation, repetition, and demonstration, the way information moves through human communities. The faster traditional prey was reduced in coyote territory, the faster this technique spread. The ecological pressure driving it was largely human-caused. Decades of predator control had stripped away rabbits, rodents, and small prey across entire regions. Those populations faced a choice between innovation and starvation. Right alongside them, in every direction, sat the largest unguarded food surplus on the continent: feral piglets, produced by the millions each breeding cycle, invisible to every other predator in the ecosystem. The numbers reflecting this shift are already moving. In Texas, documented piglet losses to coyote predation have doubled over the last decade. In sections of Oklahoma and Georgia, feral hog populations have declined by 20% in zones of sustained coyote activity. No government program, no helicopter contract, no trap line. In East Texas, specifically, more than 30% of piglets disappear each breeding season. Nearly every one of those losses maps to zones of high coyote density. That correlation is confirmed as causal by multiple independent field studies. Now here is where the failure becomes something I find genuinely difficult to process. While coyotes were quietly running a generational correction that no funded program had come close to achieving, government agencies were paying hunters to remove them. From 2017 to 2020, multiple states offered bounties of up to $75 per coyote. Hunters collected by the thousands. In one Texas county, coyotes were reduced by over 60% through state-funded targeted removal. Inside 3 years, the feral hog population in that county tripled. When researchers reviewed those numbers, the conclusion was direct. The county had spent public money removing the one thing that was working. The bounty programs were not a solution. They were eliminating the correction mechanism while the problem expanded on every side. That is a decade of work running in the wrong direction. Over $100 million in federal spending alone, not on a bad guess, on a verified removal of the most cost-efficient predation system operating against the problem. The response since then has been a structural shift. Texas has moved toward a coordinated approach that for the first time formally includes protecting coyote populations in high-density hog regions. Counties that previously ran active coyote removal alongside hog control have reversed that policy. This is not a minor adjustment. This is a formal acknowledgement that the ecosystem had already built a partial answer, and that years of funded management had been systematically canceling it. Trap technology has also changed significantly. Smart traps now run along the perimeters of working ranches across Texas. Infrared cameras, solar power, wireless feeds to a phone app. A rancher can watch hogs enter the trap in real time from 100 miles away. The discipline required is important. Old automatic cage traps triggered when the first animal hit a pressure plate. You catch 3 out of 30 and scatter the rest permanently. The new approach holds. It waits until every animal in the group is inside the frame. One button press. The gate drops. No survivors. No animals left to carry the memory of what happened anywhere else. Some ranchers go further. They leave traps open and unset for 2 full weeks. Corn scattered inside. No trigger, no consequence. The hogs walk in, eat, and leave. They return. They bring younger animals and piglets. After 14 days of zero threat, the structure has become normal to them. It is furniture in their territory. Then, the camera shows 30 or 40 animals in the pen on the same night. The gate drops. The technique works because it waits for complete information instead of acting on partial presence. Communities across rural Texas are now pooling resources to run coordinated trap systems across multiple properties simultaneously. Helicopter teams work compressed sweeps across hundreds of thousands of acres at once. Specialized toxins are being field tested through feeders that require a hog's physical strength to open, which keeps non-target species unaffected. In Atascosa County, a coalition of ranchers combining smart traps with coyote-protected land management watched annual crop losses fall from 600 acres of destroyed corn to nearly zero inside 2 growing seasons. The Texas model is now being studied by wildlife agencies in Australia and New Zealand, where feral pig populations are accelerating along an identical growth curve. But every researcher who has spent serious time on this problem now understands something that no budget line can fully replace. Traps catch adults. Helicopters push herds. Toxins remove individuals. Coyotes hit the generational cycle. They remove the next population before it exists. In the dark, in places no removal crew will ever reach. Without a budget. Without maintenance. 7 nights a week in every weather condition. The way I understand it now, the entire failure of feral hog management came down to one wrong assumption that was held for decades. Every major program targeted the existing adult population, all the traps, all the helicopters, all the dog teams, all the toxins, aimed at the animals already alive. The coyotes found the opening no one else was using. They were not targeting the existing population. They were targeting what comes next. They were removing the next generation before it became the problem. That is a fundamentally different approach. And it was running across multiple states entirely without authorization, without any line in any public budget, and without the awareness of the agencies responsible for managing the exact problem it was quietly working against. The most effective predation system operating against feral hogs in the United States was not designed by any wildlife management program. It evolved under pressure. It strengthened through necessity. And then it was actively dismantled by the institutions that needed it most. So for me, the main thing I take from all of this is simple. The ecosystem had already started correcting itself. The mistake was not failing to find a solution. The mistake was paying to shut down the one that was already running.